You are watching.
George Schlacek.
The one and only.
Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Bicycle Touring Talk, episode 31. This series is based on my book, Destinations Are Fake, covering my first major bicycle tour and what I've learned from it. If you've been following, you've probably noticed that I went on this tour by myself. To me, this was the only way I could do it because at the time I didn't even know any other cyclists or people who would be interested in going on a tour without a destination. Honestly, people in my circles acted like I had somehow lost my mind. I wasn't actually part of a cycling community, but had rediscovered the bicycle as a means to get around and get healthy for myself. The tour was my way to take this to the next level. People often ask me why I toured alone. They couldn't seem to imagine being by themselves most of the time while on the road. It was different for me because I had just left the long-haul trucking business and was used to traveling by myself for weeks on end. I had originally entered the trucking field because I enjoy this kind of travel. There are many good reasons to travel alone. You may remember me talking about cycling at your own pace in an earlier episode. Unless you have a partner who is close to you and whose fitness level is close to your own, touring with someone else is going to be a compromise in that regard. Traveling alone gives you unlimited freedom, which has been one of the main perks of bicycle touring for me so far. Yes, it is a form of escape from the ordinary and a pretty complete one at that. You can withdraw from your usual reality for the duration of the tour, and it is entirely up to you how much or how fast you want to ride. You can make plans in the morning and throw them out in the afternoon. For example, you might see something that interests you along the way and have the option of adapting your agenda without consulting anyone else. Touring becomes super easy once you're comfortable with the idea. Does this make it a selfish pursuit? Possibly, but that doesn't make it any less worthy. By going it alone, you're definitely more open to your surroundings, including the people in them. It is surprisingly easy to pick up a new language when there's nobody around to talk in yours or even to help translate. It is also much easier to make new friends. As a cycling tourist, people will approach you. Often they will start a conversation just out of curiosity. If you give them enough time and focus, many of them will turn out to be good friendship material. In general, I believe that the more persons are traveling with you, the harder it becomes to make meaningful connections with persons you meet along the way. Your focus is simply not on them as much. More often than not, people are open-minded and friendly. While some will just pop up and disappear again the minute you turn around, others may turn into lifelong friends. The amazing thing is that they don't necessarily have to have a lot in common with you. They may speak a different language, be of different race, and live in a very different social system. It doesn't matter how wealthy or poor they are. Give them due respect and you will make a connection. The key issue is to understand that no matter where you go in the world, there are always more good people than evil ones. Oh sure, if you listen to the news and some travel advisories, you may not necessarily be convinced of my last statement. But isn't the idea worth giving it a chance? Bicycle touring is still an unconventional way of travel. It takes you off the beaten path which usually leads up to plenty of opportunities to connect with people you would not meet any other way. You will gain surprising insights into their way of life. Ultimately, no school or university can duplicate that. Once you've been on the road for a while, you may on occasion bump into other touring cyclists. Needless to say that when you do, you instantly have something in common, and usually there's a lot to talk about. Bicycle tourists are few and far between, so nobody understands you better than they do. If you meet someone who happens to move in the same direction, you might decide to ride together for a while, which can also have its perks. The nice thing is that there doesn't have to be any commitment to stick together. You can just enjoy the company for a while and then go back to riding by yourself when it suits you. There were times on my trips when locals told me about other cyclists who had passed through. Sometimes I would just keep hearing about someone without ever meeting them, but on occasion I'd meet those people somewhere further down the road. Meeting people on the road is usually full of surprises. You may discover a lot of things you have in common with people you think are very different from you. This is not only fun, it's also a great way to gain new perspectives about different cultures and on life in general. Virtually all cultures have their own customs that they are proud of, but that aren't widely known beyond where they live. Being by yourself may allow you to take the time to talk to someone enough to get to know them a bit. Chances are you will be introduced to some interesting stuff. This can range from tasty food to alcoholic beverages and perhaps even parties, or perhaps a friendly discussion on how to make the world a better place. My personal experiences have included all of the above, and they are perhaps the number one reason I love to go on bicycle tours in foreign countries. Yes, I love cycling, but there's more to it than that. The best moments of any bicycle tour cannot be planned for. They just happen. That's why it's so important to allow for enough time and keep an open mind. Sometimes a change of plans is the best way to go. When you meet someone interesting and perhaps get an invitation, you have to decide whether to take him or her up on it or not. After a while, you will develop a pretty good intuition about when it is safe to do so, which is, in my experience, more often than not. If you hit it off with a member of the opposite sex, enjoy with caution. They may not have the same idea as you do. It is really easy to develop a crush on someone while you're on your tour of a lifetime, actually, far away from responsibilities. Sometimes the illusion of having met someone you think is perfect can take on a life of its own in your mind. Of course, you could fall in love and find your soulmate, but you also need to be aware of many other possible outcomes. Have you seen my last episode? Remember Muriel? I have to admit that my fantasy had jumped the gun, which ultimately led to a big disappointment. The best experiences seem to happen when you least expect them. Ultimately, I believe that making friends in unlikely places, as tends to happen on long bicycle tours, has huge potential to make the world a better place. We all have different backgrounds. Opportunities are far from equal, depending on where someone grows up and lives. But give others a chance and you'll see that we're not so different after all. Better understanding may be key to a more peaceful world. It helps to put religions and political systems into perspective. We're all human, and the rest is trivial. Countries go to war because of poor leadership, not because their citizens are enemies. Travel is the best way to overcome barriers such as language, ideology, and even religion. I hope my enthusiasm for going it alone won't discourage those of you who would rather cycle with a group or a partner. There's no right or wrong when it comes to deciding how you prefer to tour and with who. Touring with someone you're close to will help build a strong relationship as you share significant experiences. Touring with a partner was pretty much unimaginable to me after I first got started. But in recent years I have discovered and come to enjoy touring with my wife Barbara. We've done 2 major tours across parts of Colombia together, some of which you can see on this channel. Colombia is a country with mountains that will challenge any cyclist. Barbara is not exactly the most athletic cyclist, but we've always been able to find ways to make it work, even when I had to push her bike up some of the steepest hills while mine was parked on a guardrail. Barbara used to cycle for basic transportation in her younger years, but hadn't been on a bike for decades when we first started cycling together. We started off with very short trips, entirely on trails. At first, I was not convinced we'd ever go on any more serious tours together because our fitness levels were quite far apart. Now, a few years later, Barbara is an avid cyclist who has no problem keeping up for trips up to 50 kilometers long, and she enjoys it enough to keep going. Thanks to her, I've discovered how much fun it can be to share the experience of even a day trip on bikes. Barbara's bike is now equipped with 2 racks, and she has a complete set of panniers. Can you see where this is going? We are looking forward to many more trips together, and we're always watching for the next opportunity to go somewhere we can cycle together. Whatever your preference, alone or together. Bicycle touring always has potential to broaden your horizon in some way. All you need is an open mind. You can then focus on what truly matters, which is of course the entire journey and not just some ultimate destination. It also doesn't matter how far you ride in a day or how many kilometers or miles you cover in total. The act of cycling alone will make your day after day. I have found that there's interest in bicycle touring no matter where you go in the world. However, in many countries, the average citizen does not have the opportunity. Their circumstances, whether it be financial, political, or other, may not allow for extended travel or even the acquisition of cycling gear. Perhaps this will change someday. We need to come to terms with the reality that countries are artificial territories that ultimately seek to divide us. In a more globalized world, borders should not stand in the way of people's free mobility. I know that this last statement might not be popular right at this time, but we're also in an unprecedented situation that has most of us dreaming of long bicycle tours in faraway countries instead of actually experiencing them. I have a dream in which very few people actually travel by air. In this world, we would make sure everyone has the opportunity to take the time it takes to travel by bicycle or however they choose, even over long distances across continents. Time is the most valuable asset we all have, but we tend to sell it off in exchange for money without enjoying life. Faster modes of transportation have only given us a more complicated lifestyle with more stress and deadlines that would have seemed insane 100 years ago. Bicycles, however, are limited to our own drive, physically as well as mentally. Can you see how there's perhaps no better way to balance the two? bicycle touring can bring us together. It is so much more than riding your bicycle. If you've never experienced this firsthand, it may be hard to imagine. That's why I'm hoping to inspire people to try bicycle touring at all different levels. I know from personal experience that this works, and nothing makes me happier than seeing more cyclists out on the roads and trails. This video is about social connections, and it now seems like it has gotten off track. However, it all makes sense once you understand the full potential of people on bicycles. Well, this series is about my first bicycle tour. So in the next episode, I'll be talking about how the tour went on after that mosquito-infested night in Coatzacoalcos. I just made some pleasant new social connections. Was I going to stick around for a while, or was I going for the open road, direction Cancun? Find out in the next episode, and to make sure you don't miss a beat, consider subscribing. Your like is also much appreciated. It all helps me spread the word about cycling and bicycle touring. Lastly, if you'd like a copy of my book, just follow the link in the description below.